friends! Today on Asian Food Nerd, the business behind food brands. Imagine being the son of a Czech immigrant and not even having a high school education, but using his stellar salesmanship and entrepreneur grit, he creates one of the top global food brands. Ray Kroc, the legend behind McDonald's, the Golden Arches. While many would give up at the ripe old age of 52, he started his first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois on April 15, 1960. According to the McDonald's official website, the red and white tiled restaurant with the golden arches that would become the chain's signature sold $366.12 worth of burgers, fries, and shakes on its first day. Let's not forget to mention, though, that there were a few hurdles to climb, and it took around 25 years of persistence before Kroc was on top of the world. Today, the company serves 69 million customers per day at 36,000 stores in over 100 countries, with 2014 revenues of $27 billion. According to the New York Times, Kroc's family fortune was worth at least $500 million at his death in 1984. Stay tuned till the end when we share 3 tips that we learned from this story to help you build your own empire and super brand. Ray Kroc said, "I was an overnight success, all right, but 30 years is a long, long night." This story reminds us that age is only a number and that it is never too late. Ray Kroc sought to create a restaurant chain that was known for consistently high-quality meals and consistent cooking processes. He intended to serve burgers, fries, and drinks that were identical in taste in San Francisco and Tokyo. Let's dive right into the beginning. Ray Kroc didn't start McDonald's, but he grew it to be a global titan. Instead, the McDonald's Brothers started the fast food company that replaced vehicle hop services that would carry consumers out the windows. Customers came back because they couldn't stop eating their great hamburgers, fries, and milkshakes. Along the journey, the McDonald's Brothers quit 3 times. After 15 years, a savvy salesperson persuaded them to open a restaurant with a franchise business model. Kroc was in charge of opening the franchises and was instrumental in the company's first $1 billion. However, the brothers were never paid a share of the earnings. Let's first give some credit to the McDonald's brothers. Richard and Morris McDonald were born into a poor Irish immigrant family in rural New Hampshire in the 1800s. Patrick, their father, worked in a shoe factory. After working there for 42 years, he was told he was too old to work and was laid off. This motivated the brothers to be financially independent. In 1937, when the brothers sold their ownership in a theater and decided to try their hand at the restaurant business, they persuaded an Arcadia lot owner to let them open their own hot dog stand. They had no experience in the restaurant business, so they hired a cook to teach them cooking techniques. They began looking for a larger restaurant location 2 years later and opted on San Bernard, Bernardino. They started a barbecue restaurant in 1940, which was a huge hit. However, after World War I, even though their parking lot was consistently full, they recognized the business wasn't increasing. They decided to close the restaurant and return with a new look and customer experience. Richard noted in an interview that most architects don't truly understand how to draw great plans to build out drive-ins, possibly because they've never worked in one. At their tennis court behind their house, the brothers drew a floor plan and equipment arrangement on the ground with chalk. They were joined by 5 staffers who pretended to be preparing hamburgers, French fries, and milkshakes. The brothers' goals were to find the proper measures to establish an effective system. They relaunched the restaurant 3 months later with a reduced menu. They only sold hamburgers, fries, and milkshakes instead of dozens of selections. They also replaced their vehicle hop service with takeout windows, allowing customers to get their food in under a minute. This is literally fast food. This would satisfy hangry customers. By 1953, their annual sales had risen to nearly $300,000. Then came along Ray Kroc, who was a milkshake machine salesperson at the time. He received calls from restaurant owners all throughout the country requesting the same thing. "I'd like one of your mixers, like the ones the McDonald's Brothers have in San Bernardino, California." He became intrigued and began investigating them. San Bernardino was a sleepy town, essentially a desert at the time. But the Brothers Cafe featured 8 milkshake machines. This shocked Ray Kroc, since each machine cost a whopping $150 apiece. He took a business flight from Chicago to Los Angeles one day. He drove to San Bernardino the next morning to check out the McDonald's Brothers restaurant. It appeared to be a regular drive-in, but it was surrounded by a gigantic crowd. He peered inside and noticed the kitchen had turned into an assembly line. The burgers were made by one person and wrapped by another. The milkshakes were created by someone else. Another worked at the counter taking the orders. He had never seen a more amazing system. So he stayed for a few hours and told Richard and Morris about himself. Kroc created a strategic game plan in his mind on how to grow this business across the country. Every store had 8 milkshake mixers, bustling away and creating a steady flow of cash in his pockets. He told the brothers the next day that he'd seen a lot of restaurants and drive-ins, but none of them had the same potential as theirs. When he asked if they were interested in franchising, the brothers became silent for a minute. The McDonald's brother told Ray Kroc that they had a good life already. They had a White House with a wide front porch and had the American dream. The McDonald's brother did not have a hunger to make more money. However, Ray, with his crafty salesmanship, persuaded them to give him a contract that gave him the agreement. Ray was granted the rights to open franchises in the United States in exchange for 1.9% of gross sales. Out of that percentage, the brothers would receive 0.5%. Each restaurant build-out would have to be identical in design and bear the McDonald's name. Ray was not allowed to alter anything else in the restaurant unless it was approved by the brothers in a contract. Even though he was 52 years old and had diabetes and arthritis, he was an eternal optimist. He discovered a property in Des Plaines, but he discovered there was a problem with the design after meeting with a contractor. In contrast to the San Bernardino location, he was required to build a basement for the furnace. Ray was told to build one, but the brothers never granted their approval in writing. Ray recognized immediately that his contract would cause a slew of problems. After hiring a series of attorneys, Ray Kroc realized that the contract he was dealt with would be too troublesome. Ray ultimately opened his first franchise in 1955, he said. Every single day, he walked down to the restaurant to assist his employees with the opening. In his book, Grind It Out, Kroc said that the janitor would arrive at the same time as him. While wearing a good suit, Kroc would display his leadership by doing all tasks, including mopping and cleaning the bathrooms. He continued to sell milkshake machines to pay the rent and his staff until the restaurant started to generate more sales. He had opened a couple of lucrative franchises by 1956, but he was still short on funds. The bank also threatened to foreclose on his mortgage. Then, Ray Kroc had a brilliant, game-changing idea. He realized that McDonald's is actually in the real estate business. Kroc came up with the concept of launching a new company to buy land and buildings and sublease them to franchises to address their financial troubles. In the same year, they established the Realty Corporation. The company's sales climbed dramatically. More franchises were signed up, and the tagline, "In business for yourself, but not by yourself," was marketed. It was one of their winning strategies. But it wasn't enough for Ray to make his vision a reality. He planned to buy out the brothers. the brothers wanted $2.7 million in cash and the right to keep their eatery in San Bernardino. It made roughly $100,000 each year at the time. Ray was angry. He was in desperate need of the revenue generated from that store. He eventually forced them out of business by opening a McDonald's across the street. In addition, the brothers requested a 5% royalty on all future McDonald's profits. Ray agreed, but persuaded them to leave it out of their contract. Today, the brothers have never received a penny from the royalties. The McDonald's brothers would have received over $100 million every year. He claimed that if they had played their cards correctly, a half percentage point would have made them extremely wealthy. Thanks for taking the time to stay with us till the end. 3 things we learned. Number 1, put everything in a contract. The McDonald's brothers lost out on $100 million each year. If only they had put things in writing. Number 2, learn to scale a business through systems. Ray Kroc was amazing at creating systems that can be replicated. A Big Mac would taste the same in San Francisco as in Tokyo. This means workers can replicate the same product. The franchisee would be able to create the same signage and overall customer experience. Number 3, learn to be a salesperson. Sales is a skill. This includes the art of persuasion and the ability to negotiate. This is not taught in schools, so grab great sales books. Ray Kroc was able to convince the McDonald brothers to give him franchise rights. Thanks for joining us today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for our next video. Please also leave in the comment section which food brands you would like us to cover next. Asian Food Nerd, the business behind food brands.